Welcome to this Alzheimer.tv news bulletin, an initiative of the Mocha Clinic and Institute. In this edition, we review a study that links Alzheimer's to fungal infections. Our team takes a closer look at a computerized brain training package, and we have a special report on the 8th Canadian Conference on Dementia that took place last October in Ottawa. Alzheimer's disease could be associated with fungi, according to a recent study from the Autonomous University of Madrid on infectious agents. Kaya, what's the main finding of this study?
Researchers led by Dr. Luis Carrasco discovered fungal cells and hyphae in the frozen brains of 11 patients suffering from Alzheimer's, while none were present in the non-Alzheimer brains. Using various molecular techniques, such as immunofluorescence analysis of tissue sections, fungal cells were found both inside and outside brain cells. Fungal proteins and DNA were also noted in the blood serum of the patients with AD. Dr. Carrasco believes from his research that fungi is not only present because of the disease, but that it may also cause it.
So Kaya, does this mean that Alzheimer's is a fungal disease?
Amyloid deposits associated with AD may be a response to fungi's presence. A Harvard study published in 2010 did suggest that amyloid peptides had strong antimicrobial capacities. According to the author of this study, Dr. Robert Moyer, amyloid peptides are part of the innate immune system. Therefore, the beta-amyloid deposits appear when a pathogen is present. He believes that while fungi may trigger amyloid plaques, there are many other pathogens that may cause it as well.
The fact that some people have chlamydia and other ADs don't, that is not an indication that infection isn't involved. All it means is that you can get a number of different pathogens that produce the same effect, essentially inflammation of the brain and Alzheimer's disease. So that's also part of what Pisa et al. Did here. They didn't just look at a single pathogen. They actually looked at a lot of different fungal species. And that's why they didn't end up with 40% with C. albicans, Candida. They ended up with 100% of the AD cases showing an infection, because different Alzheimer's disease people had different fungal infections. But the response, I think, if our stuff holds true, is going to be the same. The brain's going to throw A beta at it to try and kill this infection.
The authors also admit that the fact that they are elderly and may have a poor adaptive immune response, or possibly changes in their diet or hygiene habits, may also contribute to the emergence of fungal infections. It's evident that clinical trials will be necessary to establish a causal effect for the fungal infections related to AD.
In the UK, elders train their brains with online games. Researchers from King's College London gave 7,000 participants over 50 years of age a computerized brain training package so they can monitor how their brains age. Although their goal is to understand what influences dementia and how memory, language, and reasoning change over the years, researchers saw another change, Kaya, and a positive one.
After 6 months, the researchers saw a 15% improvement in the daily life of people over 60 in over 40% of the participants. They also saw a significant improvement in reasoning and verbal learning in those over 50 compared to participants from the control group.
This is the second step of a really large study looking at whether brain training games can help older adults, people over 50, to maintain their cognition as they get older. We're really looking to see whether we can engage people over the long term and keep the benefits that we've already seen with these games.
The PROTECT study, published in the JAMDA journal, is the first to examine the effect of online brain training on everyday activities. Daily tasks such as telephone use, shopping, cooking, laundry, and transportation were all evaluated. The changes in cognitive performance were measured with a reasoning test and a verbal learning test.
So what sort of games are they playing?
The computerized brain training package includes 3 reasoning tasks and 3 problem-solving tasks. Participants must play 10 minutes of each game as often as they want. The best improvements came to those who played the games 5 times a week.
People with dementia, such as Alzheimer's, couldn't take part in the PROTECT study, but since it helped elders, Could a computerized brain training package be useful for patients with AD?
Well, Eric, we asked Dr. Sylvie Belleville, Director of Research at the Geriatric Institute of the University of Montreal, to review the results for us.
The industry claims that these programs can prevent Alzheimer's disease. I think we have to be very careful. We don't have the data to show that these programs have a long-term effect on cognitive decline or on dementia. They seem to improve cognition on the short term, so they seem indeed to have some effect on cognition. But I mean, it's not clear that the effect is that much better than, just learning a new language or enrolling in activities that are stimulating cognitively.
An immune system gene called IL-1RAP seems to be associated with an increased amount of amyloid plaque deposits in the brain. The gene showed an even stronger effect than the ApoE4, which is to date the most studied risk factor gene for AD. The study was led by a multi-institutional team at the Indiana University of Medicine and published in the Brain Journal. Around 500 participants had a PET scan during the initial visit as well as 2 years later. As predicted, ApoE4 was associated with an increased amount of amyloid plaques in the scans. But surprisingly, IL-1RAP showed a stronger influence on amyloid plaque accumulation. IR1RAP is known to play a key role in the activity of microglia, immune system cells responsible for the disposal of brain waste system. The study showed that the IL-1RAP variant reduces the microglial activity, increases atrophy of the temporal cortex, and accelerates cognitive decline. By targeting the IL-1RAP immune pathway, it could be possible to clear amyloid plaques. Drugs and antibodies on the market already target this gene for rheumatologic, inflammatory conditions, and leukemia. Further research is needed to see if they can have an influence on AD.
The Alzheimer.tv team covered the 8th Canadian Conference on Dementia held in Ottawa last October. During the course of this event, we had the chance to talk with Canadian leaders in Alzheimer's and dementia, such as Dr. Ron Caron, founder of the conference.
I thought it would be great for Canadians who can't afford necessarily to go to an international conference, but to have a conference where they could congregate at that would facilitate knowledge transfer and would also allow them to network with each other and develop new ideas and new initiatives.
Co-chair of the conference, Dr. Sandra Black, reminded the organizations of the importance for clinicians to have clear criteria for Alzheimer's diagnoses.
Turns out that these criteria don't all agree with each other. It's important for the clinicians to know that, and yet each group has to decide, or each country has to decide what they're going to mean by probable Alzheimer's disease, for example, and use the criteria appropriately.
While diagnostic criteria vary across countries and institutions, everyone was on the same page regarding the urge for a common effort to prevent the disease and find a treatment. Many measures are taken lately to reach that goal, such as Brain Bank that could be used by several institutions across the world. In Dr. Yves Jonette's opinion, it's essential that every effort be made together throughout the world, since Alzheimer's is a global challenge.
In a very Canadian way, we can address the challenge in Canada together because it's so important. At the same time, the strategy makes sure that the Canadian researchers are connected to their international colleagues, because the challenge of dementia is so immense that no country alone can face this challenge. We have to work together. Again, we're, so to say, condemned to work together, and it's a good condemnation because it's how we will bring new ideas and new solutions. So we are supporting lots of programs, and we're very proud that Canada is part of many of those collaborative programs, including the European Union so-called joint programming initiatives in this area, which allows Canadian researchers and their European colleagues to work together.
No need to remind you, Alzheimer's disease still doesn't have a cure. So of course, many discussions and presentations address this issue. For Dr. Salloway, a treatment is not far off. In fact, he presented his plan for a treatment breakthrough for AD by 2025.
Being at risk for Alzheimer's or having a mild form can be associated with very good quality of life. However, as the disease progresses, there's increasing disability and greater cost of care. And we want to delay that time or prevent it if possible, where people are disabled. So what the U.S. Congress has done has created a national plan to fight Alzheimer's disease in the United States. And what the G8 have done have created a similar goal of developing treatment breakthroughs by 2025. That's not going to be easy. But as I reviewed yesterday in my talk, there's been a century of progress in Alzheimer's disease, where we can now see the pathology, the proteins that build up in the brain, the plaques and the tangles of Alzheimer's, safely with brain imaging. This is a big advance. And we can use those techniques to see who's at risk of developing Alzheimer's before there's any cognitive loss. So right now, there are a number of prevention trials that have gotten underway for people who are at risk for Alzheimer's, who don't even have any really cognitive decline. And we're very hopeful that one or a number of these strategies will be effective.
Even before a treatment is found, prevention and information are essential, according to Dr. Antoine Hakim, and not only for the elderly. Prevention starts at a young age, as Dr. Hakim wrote in his recent book, 7 Rules to Avoid Alzheimer's Disease.
The attitudes and the behaviors that we now see in young children increasingly. Did you know that on average, a young child is in front of a screen 7 hours a day? I want to know what that does long term to a kid's brain. So these are the sorts of issues. So the target audience is everybody. Of course, it's people in my age group, but also I want young people to read about it.
Of course, some discoveries were shared among scientists, not least of which are Dr. Jane Drivers, who told us about PIN1, a small enzyme with big implications for Alzheimer's disease and other tauopathies.
It turns out that if you don't have enough PIN1, then you get a buildup of bad proteins like abnormal tau, which is a very important protein in the neuron, or abnormal beta amyloid. And those it seems that those are key in the development of Alzheimer's disease. So essentially PIN1 helps to prevent the collection of these bad proteins. Well, PIN1 is interesting because it plays an important role in cancer. If you have too much of it, it pushes towards cancer. So drugs that would inhibit PIN1 are very interesting targets for anti-cancer drugs, and there are many labs looking for those, for drugs that would do that. In Alzheimer's, in the neuron, unlike most other cells, PIN1 is really important for maintaining the health of proteins like tau and beta amyloid or amyloid precursor proteins. So in that case, we might not want to increase PIN1 body-wide because then that would put people at risk of cancer. So the approach we've taken is to find ways of increasing PIN1 just in the neuron, or of targeting the bad proteins that build up in the absence of PIN1 and removing them through antibody therapy, for example, so that we stop the progression of the spread of the abnormal tau, which seems to be important for the process of the disease.
Thank you for watching the Alzheimer.tv News Bulletin. We'd like to hear from you, so if you have any comments or would like to contact our team, please visit the Alzheimer.tv website.